Our first presenter is Kenneth Price, and this paper is entitled Promoting Onomastics in Travel Writing, Multimodal Travel Toponymies, and I believe we have a pre-recorded presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I first wanted to express how grateful I am that you allowed me to participate in this conference. You'll be able to see that I'm relatively new to the discipline of onomastics, and was just recently have seen the possibilities for incorporating this into my travel writing. I have to first introduce myself. I'm Kenneth Price. You can see that I teach within the Texas A&M University system. I teach here in Kingsville, Texas. Before I came to this university, I was a professor at various universities throughout the United States. I taught in California, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Missouri, even Alaska, where my son was born. So, as far as geography, I think that this probably piqued my interest in travel writing and especially onomastics. What I wanted to do is to share with you the assignments, the methods of assessment that I have in my travel writing courses. You can see that the entire intent of this is to promote onomastics in travel writing. I tried to detail the methodology and justification for integrating onomastics into the curriculum of travel writing courses. I also include travel toponyms, assignments, and activities that promote onomastics and travel writing pedagogy and practice. And then I detail how to construct learning outcome statements and develop measurement assessment strategies for institutions to gauge the effectiveness of these assignments. There we go. My entry into onomastics, like I said, for the past 25 years, what I have taught primarily were undergraduate, graduate courses in technical, professional communication, scientific and technical editing, those kinds of professional writing courses. You can see that I just finished completing a travel writing textbook, and this is my entry into the field that I'll be talking about today. I really didn't have that much of a background until I started writing this multimodal travel writing textbook that just recently went to press. You can see that as far as this presentation is concerned, what I try to do first is to review a few of the terminologies. It's not in any shape, form, or fashion insulting my colleagues. It's simply because, well, this is new type of writing for my students, and also this time next week, I will also be giving this presentation or a form of this presentation to English instructors and English professors at another conference, and they certainly aren't familiar with the terminology. So what I try to do is first explain what exactly that I have my students do in the class. You can see all of you are probably familiar with toponymy, toponyms, and you can see that it's a study of place names, obviously. And this is within a branch of onomastics. You can see that the names of places, cities, countries, even fictional locations, which has been my one skirting of familiarity with this particular field, in 19th century American travel writing. I did see a bit of this, but it was certainly not something that I delved as extensively into as I have with my travel writing courses and my travel writing textbook. You can see also as well that city name etymologies, they can come from a variety of different sources, as I'm sure everyone is well aware. As far as who founded a city or the language that people spoke there, the geographic landscape, typography, all of those go into naming cities. And for me, this is the most interesting part of travel writing is the story behind the name itself. You can share these stories in your travel writing, making it more interesting, you know, as well as educational. You can see that with travel toponyms, it's a valuable tool for travel writers to enrich their narratives. Before, and I will be differentiating the contemporary types of travel writing with the traditional, where you have 1,500 California place names, their history, where their originated, all of those different types of things. That's more traditional type of writing. What I'm going to do is explain how I make it more contemporary by including digital technology, multimodality, all of those terms that I used and have used in my technical professional writing courses. You can see that this certainly piques the interest of travelers, the people who are the target audience for travel writing websites, travel writing blogs, travel writing books themselves. Um, City name etymologies. I have an example here of the etymology of Dallas, Texas. As I mentioned, I grew up in Barron, West Texas, very close to that no tree sign. Um, the city that I was born in is named Midland, which was the etymology was from that was derived from being the mid or equidistant geographic location between Fort Worth, Texas and El Paso, Texas. So, like I said, growing up in Barron, West Texas, you were steeped with the history. That's throughout the entire state. And you can see that this is interesting for me and my students simply because what it allows them to do is to develop proficiencies with research, with digital technology, and learning a new way of writing and a new way of research that informs their writing that they're probably not familiar with. You can see naming places. This is from my textbook, derived where the methods that were naming places were. And what I do in my technical writing textbook, as well as in my class, is I go through the different toponyms and I have the descriptive, my students always think this is interesting as well. And you can see as that I have the no trees road sign that I have on the title slide for this presentation. I think it's really humorous that there was one tree, one native tree that was destroyed with a shell oil gas plant. And so now it's simply no trees. And I go through, the different types of toponyms, like I said, associative. Um, I have a lot of students who come up from the valley to study at this university, and they always are interested in where the names came from. What is the etymology for where they grew up? different things that are interesting they find interesting, something like an incident toponym, a commemorative toponym, um, possessive, manufactured. What I do is give them a good sense as far as what this is and what I'm looking for. As I mentioned in my classes, what I have them do is they create an infographic, which is a pictorial depiction of information. It's in a narrative format. It uses things like icons, imagery, um, audio, video, just a variety of different modes or modalities of presenting information. It can go even to the point of having animation and interactions and all of this. And so what I've done in all the classes that I teach, but I have brought this over, transferred this over into my travel writing course, is I have infographics. Why? Because it presents information and technical information and a method that is presented for someone who may not have um, this an upper or advanced reading level. And you can see readability studies have shown that infographics are more effective in facilitating the understanding of technical text or new text, new information. But also, I think it provides interest. You can see this is from my technical writing courses. I have my automotive engineering students create these kinds of infographics. My petroleum engineering courses students create those, even to the point to where I have these in my these infographics in my curriculum as far as their employment materials, have different types of infographics that I've since moved into travel writing. And this is where like I said, I brought this into the travel writing courses that I teach, and you can see that it does explain information in a much easier to discern format. It's visually interesting, even to the point of including travel information graphics like a travel itinerary for a weekend getaway in San Francisco. What I've done in my travel writing courses is including these onomastic infographics. And you can see this is something that I created for the various counties, central coastal counties in California, where the names for the counties were derived from, the etymologies of these. And what I have them do is create something very similar to this. They write about something they're familiar with, which is their hometown, but also some place where they want to visit. Create a travel infographic, including historical photos. And one thing that I try to do is to use multiple means of assessing the instructional goals and educational outcomes. If you aren't part of these, well, here in Texas, we're part of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools accreditation. We have a state mandate here in Texas that our writing communication courses need to have accessible goals and outcomes, student learning outcomes, something that's measurable. So we can come back later and see, you know, have we met these goals that we set out? Some of the methods for assessing the courses include, like I said, onomastics. You can see the learning outcomes as far as understanding, researching techniques and theories for developing proficiency with digital technologies where they create their infographics, and also to cite the sources of the information that they have. And you can see the artifacts at the end of the semester where I use to assess the success of the course, all the way down to a class presentation of a travel toponym. You can see that most of the technical writing courses that I've taught in the past have unit activities, and I try to do the same thing with this. Um, Having something like an annotated bibliography where they have to go and find four sources for the information they're going to create in their infographic toponym. You can see that they need to be able to cite sources and also have it to where they can disseminate these types of documents themselves. At the end of the semester, after they've created their infographics, the students publicly present their information to the class. This is very similar to experiential learning classes, but also the Boyer model of scholarship and teaching and learning that you see in these assessment strategies, to where they're actually able to orally present this information, and the class, the students can all participate in these oral presentations later in the semester. And what happens is they have a question and answer after they give their oral presentations. This is very similar to the oral presentation I'm currently giving you, except instead of using Zoom, my students use YouTube and create a voiceover oral presentation. And then they post this to YouTube. And you can see that this is something they post before the end of the semester, so everyone has a chance to be able to share information, or it has learning built in where students can all take part in the presentation, and they also have a question and answer session. So that's the debriefing part of this. And like I said, it's multi-sectional, it's multi-element, and you can see that this is something that it typically takes the entire semester. But I think my time is short, and so what I will do is end this. If you have any kind of questions or you would like to continue this conversation, please send me an email and we can communicate via Zoom, as I do with my students. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. That was so interesting. I don't think we've had a presentation like that before, so I'm delighted that you decided to do this. Um, I have some questions and comments, and then we'll see what other folks have to say in the chat. The first thing is I didn't know that people taught classes on travel writing, so that's fantastic. Um, how interesting. And the fact that you're focusing on toponymy here is really, really interesting. So I'm curious. Well, first of all, I wanted to ask, in this new book that you have coming out, do you have like a chapter about naming or toponymy generally? Or is it
Yes.
just dealt with as part of the
No,
text?
that was part of the chapter on infographics, travel infographics, and also research methodologies
Mm,
for travel writing. How they get their information through interviews, questionnaires, surveys, or just talking to their parents or grandparents,
mhm.
people who live in the town.
Yeah, that's so cool. There was a comment in the chat from Alexa who says, I work with illiterate and subliterate students. Whoops, it just scrolled off. Clients. It's important for academics to keep in mind the needs of non-academic audiences as well served by these infographics. And I totally agree with that too. Alexa also contributes. As someone outside formal linguistics, it's important to think about how linguistics factors into other disciplines and how it can be broken down for people who don't study linguistics per se. And this is a really great example of that. I say, as reviewing the papers for our names journal, we see a lot more not quite infographics, but approaching them, illustrations of the data when people are doing it. And I think everybody just finds it more interesting when you can visually grasp something rather than seeing it described. And the examples you gave were great. They were really very clear. Your students are doing a good job.
Thank thank you. It kind of sells itself, this multimodality. As far as being a wave of the future, this is the present. I mean, I don't think we're ever going back to books that are 1500 California place names and where they're derived from.
Hmm.
One thing I can say as far as multimodality, I've received two teaching awards simply for integrating this into my curriculum for my classes that I teach.
Wow,
And this is all the way,
fantastic.
yeah, this is from freshman composition all the way up to graduate level travel writing courses.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. David Wade had a comment and he says, I might have missed it, but did you explain the origin of the no trees sign in your slide? And I know it was in there, but if you could repeat it, that'd be great.
I grew up in very desolate area in the panhandle of Texas, and there were a lot of little towns that stopped existing simply because of decibel or because of some reason or other. No Trees is very close to where I grew up in Midland, and I used to tell my students that I would climb a windmill and I could see 100 miles in every direction because it was so flat. There's one tree that I say, and the reason why I included this is because I thought it was funny. There was one native tree and no trees, and the Shell Oil Company killed it, and so there's no trees there now. But you can see in the background of that photograph, there's one. It looks like a tree. It's a mesquite bush. Is what it is.
Oh, mhm.
It's not a tree, but yeah, that's the origin of no trees. There are
Oh,
a lot of towns in West Texas that are very similar to that. Borden Mill, Gale Borden, all of those different things. Big Lake, Texas, there's not a lake, and it's certainly not big. Maybe when it rains, it kind of fills in, kind of a mud hole kind of thing. But
mhm. Oh, interesting. Okay. I have another question while we wait to see if anybody else has a comment here. It strikes me that this is a great way, and I'm sure you do this, to teach your students critical thinking because in my own work, I've seen a lot of explorations into toponymy is debunking, right? Like people think that a thing has a name and then you start looking into it and it's usually way more interesting or sometimes a lot more boring. But it seems like a lot of myths grow up around the names of places because people love to invent stories, right?
oh, absolutely. In fact, I saw a lot of that in 19th century American travel writing. You see those kinds of things, especially with Mark Twain. You know,
Hmm.
you see a lot of those, where you're wondering, what's the mythos of this? I mean, how is this created? And like you said, oftentimes, it's like Paradise, California. I have that in my textbook as well. I lived in Paradise, California since burn up as part of the fires, but people
Hmm.
think that it's derived from paradise and the Bible or whatever. Actually, it was from paradise. The gold rush people were gamblers, and so that's where the name was originated from. Not
That's
nearly,
incredible.
yeah, I think that's great.
It is so good. Sarah, please go ahead.
Um, Thank you, Kenneth. How do you teach your students to research the etymologies?
Um, well, one thing that I've seen a lot of is that these students they're interested in where they grew up, and that's why I try to make it personal to them, talking to interviewing their grandparents or their relatives or whatever. Um, a lot of the history in South Texas involves King Ranch and Kingsville, so that's where most of the research that we have. We have an archives at the university for all of the different, little small towns in the valley. And so that's where they get a lot of their research information.
What do your students think about the whole field of onomastics? Like, I'm assuming that they didn't really know that this was an academic study, or is it interesting to them? Like, are they
It
into it?
is. It is. I think the enthusiasm that I impart to them adds a lot to, to their interest in this particular thing. It's like I said, I didn't really delve into this field very much. And when I was doing research for my travel writing textbook, I just stumbled across this naming society, and I was telling my colleagues it's like the mothership landed in my backyard. And I was just like, this is everything that I'm interested in as far as writing, communication, graphics, presentation of information, the history, all of this for me was fascinating. I think they see that enthusiasm, and at least they're smart enough to um, feign interest.
I'm sure they're interested. That's really wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit more about your book? You said it is due to be published soon. So what's the title and when can people get it?
It was multimodal travel writing. And the
Okay.
reason why that I included multimodal is because that's it's like I said, it's kind of the hot topic now in composition and communication, technical communication, having different modalities and having graphics, having motion, having audio, video, iconography, all of those different things. And not just technical communication, which was my last book,
Mhm.
but also in travel writing. As far as the book is concerned, I finished it, and people want to get copies, desk copies, or whatever. I think there's a new publication model to where things will never be in a print format. It's an
Mhm.
EPUB, and
Mhm.
it will never be anything other than an EPUB. And so
Mhm.
really my publisher, what they do is they sell, I guess you could say they rent subscriptions to the book. For me, it's like I said, I seriously considered self-publishing it just to
Mhm.
get it on, out for everyone, because I've had so many friends and colleagues who were saying, I'd love to use this in my class. I didn't even know there were classes in
Mhm.
travel
Mhm.
writing. But
Exactly.
until,
Yeah.
until I can, I guess, wrestle the copyright away from my publisher, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, understood. It is a brave new world of publishing for sure. Who's the publisher in case people want to go get a copy?
Um, they won't. They won't. It's Kindle Hunt,
Okay.
academic publishing. My book before that, the technical communication multimodality book, was through Cengage, and before that, it was um, oh, what is the name of that book? I have them around, sitting around, but um, it does have an ISBN, and I can get copies to anyone who is interested in that, using it in their classroom. If you just shoot me an email or something like that, I would be more than happy to send that to
Oh,
my publisher.
that's wonderful. Thank you for offering, and thank you so much for that presentation. That was great.